You pour coffee. Leave the contracts to people who understand them. Gavin Mercer pushed the offer toward the diner owner as though Emma were not qualified to read the words that could take away her workplace. He did not know that his contempt was about to reach the one woman capable of making his own employer question an entire empire. Heavy rain pounded Pine Hollow, and the river had risen dangerously close to Riverside Diner. Nora Ellis gripped a blue envelope marked with a heron symbol. Gavin sat across from her while Leah Park placed a map of the riverfront properties on the table with a blue paper clip. "I need another 30 days to hire a lawyer and review the agreement," Nora said. "This diner is the last thing my husband left me." Gavin looked at his watch. "The offer expires tomorrow morning. If you do not sign, the price will be lower afterward." Emma set down the coffee pot and pointed toward the small print. "This provision allows the interest rate on the renovation loan to increase, then permits the property to be seized if Nora cannot make the payments." "Why is that included in a purchase agreement?" Gavin looked at her waitress uniform. "You pour coffee. Leave the contracts to people who understand them." Leah spoke quietly. "We could extend the deadline so they can receive independent legal advice." That was Gavin's opportunity to step back. Instead, he placed the Blue Heron Holdings envelope on the counter. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. After that, do not say I failed to warn you." He walked out, leaving the doorbell shaking beneath the sound of thunder. Leah looked back at Emma. Concern crossed her face before she followed her supervisor. Several minutes later, the door opened again. A tall man entered with his shirt and coat soaked through. Daniel Whitmore had returned to Pine Hollow after many years, but Emma did not recognize him. The corporate photographs published in newspapers were outdated, and he had pulled his sleeve over his expensive watch. "I apologize," he said. "My vehicle broke down near the bridge. My phone has no power, and my wallet is locked inside the car." Nora was preparing to close because of the flooding risk. Emma still gave him a dry towel, then placed a bowl of hot soup and a cup of coffee in front of him. "I cannot order food when I have no way to pay." "Then tonight you are my guest." Emma quietly used the tips in her pocket to cover the meal. When she returned to the counter, an elderly man stranded because the buses had stopped running was staring at the final slice of apple pie. She cut it in half and brought him the larger portion without adding it to his bill. Daniel watched her. He was accustomed to people becoming kinder after learning his name. But Emma helped him while believing he had nothing to offer in return. "I will come back and repay you," he said, as the lights from a rescue vehicle passed across the windows. Emma smiled. "When you have the opportunity, help someone else. That will be enough." Before leaving, Daniel noticed the Blue Heron envelope on the counter. He recognized the subsidiary's name, but he did not know Gavin had just used it to threaten Nora. Outside, the rescue worker paused after seeing the license plate on Daniel's luxury vehicle, then respectfully opened the door for him. The following morning, the rain had stopped. A black sport utility vehicle pulled up outside Riverside Diner. Daniel stepped out wearing a perfectly fitted suit while calls from his assistant continued appearing on his phone. A customer near the window suddenly stood. "That is Daniel Whitmore, the founder of Whitmore Development, the richest man in town." Emma was pouring coffee when she froze. Daniel walked to the counter and placed the exact cost of the soup and coffee beside the receipt. "I promised I would return." "And you paid what you owed?" Daniel took out another check. It was written for $10,000. This is not payment for the meal. It is my way of thanking you for treating me like a human being." Nora held her breath. A co-worker who knew that Margaret had heart disease quietly reminded Emma that the money could cover the overdue hospital bills. Inside Emma's apron pocket, the corner of the medical invoice seemed to burn against her hand. She remembered how her father had once accepted a loan, described as help, then lost their home because of conditions hidden in the small print. Emma held the check for several seconds. Then she walked around the counter and placed it back in Daniel's hand. "I will accept only the cost of the meal and an ordinary tip." "Why? You need this money." Emma did not ask how he knew. "If I keep $10,000, what happened last night will no longer be an act of kindness. It will become a transaction." Daniel tightened his fingers around the check. His pride had been wounded, but her refusal also made it impossible for him to look away from her. "Then what am I supposed to do to thank you?" "Do not turn every emotion into a number." Daniel left without arguing. Emma returned to work, but every time she touched the hospital bill inside her pocket, her hand trembled. Nora began to say something, then stopped and quietly pushed the purchase envelope toward her. Emma opened the agreement to check the deadline. The map assigned numbers to nearly every property in the riverfront neighborhood. On the final page, beneath the representative's signature, a small line made her stop breathing. Blue Heron Holdings, an affiliate of Whitmore Development. She placed the business card Daniel had left beside the contract. The same name appeared on both. Whitmore. When the black sport utility vehicle returned to Riverside Diner late that morning, Daniel entered hoping to see the smile she had given him the night before. But Emma did not bring him coffee. She placed the agreement directly in front of him. "Are you buying our entire neighborhood? Are you buying our entire neighborhood?" Daniel looked at the heron symbol on the agreement, then raised his eyes. "Whitmore Development owns Blue Heron, but the project will restore the riverfront, create jobs, and according to the reports I received, most residents support it." Emma opened the page containing the forced deadline and the property seizure provision. "Is this what you call support?" The acquisition team may have interpreted the policy too aggressively. I have never seen this document. Then you are hiding behind your employees. Daniel tightened his jaw. You are judging me because I am wealthy, just as Gavin judged you because you were a waitress. The words silenced Emma. She knew she had allowed an old wound to speak before the evidence, but she did not retreat from the real issue. Perhaps I judged you too quickly. You have an opportunity to prove me wrong. Inside the diner, Daniel called Gavin. Stop every acquisition activity for 72 hours. I want independent valuations and a direct meeting with the residents. Gavin answered calmly. I will handle it. But he stopped only the letters carrying the Whitmore name. Through subsidiary companies, he continued purchasing overdue loans and sending foreclosure warnings to property owners who still refused to sell. During the following 3 days, Daniel visited the riverfront neighborhood alone. A shoe repair shop received an offer worth nearly half the amount offered for a store of the same size at the other end of the street. 2 families received different prices, even though their houses stood beside each other. The report claimed that 78% of residents supported the project, but many people had never been asked whether they wanted to sell. Emma guided him through streets, still covered in mud. Daniel explained that his marriage had collapsed after he realized his former wife cared only about status. Emma admitted that she had abandoned her nursing program to care for Margaret after her heart attack. "My father once believed a loan would save our family," she said. "The small print took away our home. Since then, I have always feared that help might become a rope tied around me." A telephone call interrupted them. Margaret was experiencing chest pain and needed to be admitted for testing. Daniel drove Emma to the hospital. When he saw her hiding an overdue medical bill, he said, "Let me pay it. There will be no conditions." Emma turned toward him. "If I accept your money today, will I still be free to stand before the town tomorrow and oppose your project? I will not purchase your silence, but I need to know that I never sold it." Daniel did not pressure her, but the hurt remained visible on his face. Margaret had heard them from the hospital bed. After Daniel left, she took her daughter's hand. Protecting your dignity does not mean refusing every act of kindness. Learn to examine the conditions attached to a gift, not only the person offering it. That evening, the community meeting was filled beyond capacity. Holding Nora's agreement, Emma said angrily, "Daniel Whitmore knew from the beginning that residents were being pressured." Daniel stood at the back of the room, his expression closing. The moment Emma finished speaking, she understood that she had gone beyond what the evidence could prove. After the meeting, she found him in the hallway. "I apologize for accusing you of a motive I could not prove, but you are still responsible for the system you created." "You are right about the second part," Daniel answered. "And I need the truth, even when it works against me." The following morning, an unmarked package arrived at Riverside Diner. Inside was a flash drive attached to a blue paper clip, identical to the kind Leah had used. Emma took it to attorney Sophia Ramirez. Sophia created a secure copy according to evidence procedures, examined the files, and compared them with public records. The flash drive contained valuations showing that the properties were worth 35 to 60% more than the offers, a list of subsidiary companies, a schedule of debt purchases, and emails ordering employees to keep Daniel away from acquisition calls. But Daniel had signed the target requiring the company to purchase 90% of the neighborhood before the deadline. An email warning that residents were being pressured had also reached his office and was marked as having been read. Daniel came to Sophia's office after she contacted him. He studied the email for a long time. "My assistants usually organize messages and mark summaries after forwarding them. I did not read this." Emma asked, "But did you ever request to see the objections directly?" Daniel did not avoid the question. "No, I established an unrealistic target and looked only at the progress reports. I did not order anyone to pressure residents, but my failure to supervise the process created that pressure for Gavin." His hand closed tightly. That afternoon, he met Gavin privately and placed the evidence on the table. "This is your final opportunity. Release every record and tell the truth." Gavin pushed back his chair. "Leah created the subsidiary companies herself and falsified the reports. I will require her to sign a statement accepting responsibility." He called Leah into the room and placed a prepared confession in front of her. "Sign it. The company will protect you." Leah looked at the pen, then pushed the paper back. "No, you ordered us to conceal the valuations and keep Daniel away from the calls." That evening, Sophia received Leah's signed statement and the original email history. Leah admitted that she had sent the flash drive and agreed to testify at the town council hearing where Gavin was preparing to claim that every transaction had been voluntary. On the night before the vote, Daniel stood alone in his office, staring at the model of the riverfront project worth millions of dollars. On the screen before him was evidence that could destroy the company he had spent his life building. The following morning, he would have to choose between protecting the project and publicly revealing the truth about his own signature. The following morning, Daniel brought the evidence to Pine Hollow City Hall. The meeting room was filled with residents, business owners, and reporters, all waiting to see whether he would protect his corporation or tell the truth about his own signature. Gavin stood beside the riverfront development model. This project is the town's final opportunity to save its economy. Every transaction has been legal and voluntary. Only a small group is standing in the way of hundreds of jobs. Emma placed Nora's agreement before the council. We are not asking the town to cancel all development, suspend the transactions, provide independent legal representation, and allow the community to participate in designing the project. Gavin smiled coldly. Miss Carter was once offered $10,000 by Mr. Whitmore. Perhaps this is only a negotiation that has not yet reached the right price. Daniel stood. Whitmore Development owns Blue Heron, and I control the corporation. Emma never accepted a $10,000 tip, medical payments, or any other benefit in exchange for her silence. She owes me nothing. He looked toward the residents. I signed a target requiring the company to acquire 90% of the properties under an unreasonable deadline without examining how that target would be achieved. I cannot place that responsibility entirely on my employees. Sophia presented the flash drive data after comparing it with the company servers. It included the original property valuations, the list of subsidiary companies, the schedule of loan purchases, and emails ordering employees to keep Daniel away from conversations with residents. The door at the back of the room opened. Leah entered holding the blue paperclip. I sent the flash drive. I prepared misleading reports under Gavin's direction, and I accept responsibility for my part. But I will not continue helping him turn residents into numbers. One business owner after another stood and handed Sophia foreclosure warnings and purchase offers below market value. The dates, amounts, and subsidiary company names all matched the data. Gavin turned toward Daniel. If we do not acquire enough land, the project will fail. The town will continue declining. You signed these targets. Yes, Daniel answered without avoiding him. I did not order anyone to threaten the residents, but I created a system that rewarded results without asking how those results were achieved. He placed the documents on the table. I am suspending the project, canceling agreements showing signs of coercion, and refunding fees created through the subsidiary companies. Gavin Mercer is suspended effective today. Daniel made it clear that Gavin would not be judged guilty based only on testimony. The records were transferred to an independent audit team. The town council delayed the vote until residents had legal representation and access to the complete data. During the months that followed, Daniel did not cancel the project simply to purchase forgiveness. He worked with residents to establish a community land trust, gave small businesses voting seats, ordered new property valuations, and allowed anyone who had sold under pressure to cancel or renegotiate an agreement. Riverside Diner received a long-term lease. Nora created a program allowing employees to purchase small ownership shares in the restaurant. The development reserved space for local businesses and included flood protection, a public park, and a community clinic. The Medical Assistance Fund was managed by an independent organization. It did not carry Daniel's name and was not connected to Emma. The investigation confirmed that Gavin had concealed valuations and submitted misleading reports. His employment was terminated, while any civil responsibility continued through the legal process. Leah received protection for cooperating, but she still underwent a formal review because she had signed inaccurate reports. She later transferred to an independent compliance department. Margaret received help with her medical expenses through a hospital assistance program and a community fundraiser that had been organized before the new fund existed. Emma did not have to owe Daniel anything for her mother to receive treatment. After Margaret's condition stabilized, Emma returned to her nursing program on a part-time schedule. Daniel did not ask her to forgive him. He attended every community meeting, including the ones where residents voted against his proposals. The corporate board strengthened its oversight, while Daniel learned to listen before making decisions. 8 months later, Riverside Diner was glowing with warm light on a quiet afternoon. Outside the windows, workers were completing the flood protection road, while the old stores remained open beside the new park. Daniel entered alone and sat in the same chair he had used on the rainy night. He ordered a bowl of soup, coffee, and apple pie. When Emma placed the bill on the table, he paid the exact amount and left an ordinary tip. "No check?" she asked, a slight smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. "I am learning not to turn every emotion into a number." He did not offer to purchase the diner, pay medical bills, or change her life. "After your shift, would you like to walk with me beside the river?" Emma looked through the window. The changes outside were not perfect, but they had been created through meetings, arguments, and votes made by the residents themselves. Daniel had spent 8 months taking responsibility without knowing whether she would ever return his feelings. "One walk," she said, "and you do not get to choose the route by yourself." Daniel smiled. "I agree." 5 minutes later, Emma removed her apron and walked out of Riverside Diner beside him. Daniel had once believed that $10,000 was the greatest way to thank her. But what finally allowed Emma to open her heart was something that could never be written on a check: responsibility, patience, and genuine change. Kindness does not create a debt, and real love always leaves the other person free to choose.